My name is Greg Tacchetti. I am currently the Chief Information and Strategy Officer for State Auto Mutual Insurance Company. I just celebrated my 30th anniversary in the property casualty insurance industry and just had my 6th anniversary with State Auto and actually my first stop as a CIO. So real briefly, my background, I went to the University of Maryland where I studied economics, and then while I was thinking about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, a good family friend encouraged me to apply for an underwriting job at Geico, which was a few miles from where I was living. I didn't honestly ever want to go into the insurance industry or really even work inside, but I took that opportunity and really became setting my life and my career in a really interesting direction. I spent 10 years with Geico, most of that 7 years running their motorcycle product line. And then went up to New York, running some operations stuff in Long Island for Geico. And then in 2001, took a big risk. My wife and I were a few years married, and our first daughter was only less than a year old. But in September of 2001, I went out to Safeco with a new management team to help turn around that company that was having some financial issues. And that really became a great experience for me. I learned a lot more about the industry than I had working just at Geico, and really fell in love with the complexity of this industry. When you think about having to sell a product that you don't know the full price of sometimes until many years into the future, and then having to deal with the vagaries of the wind blowing and hail falling and wildfires and earth shaking, it really becomes very interesting in how to put a competitive product in front of your customers in what is a very price-sensitive, consumer-driven market. Along the way, while I was at Safeco in Seattle, I got my master's in business administration at the University of Washington, and that really, I think, gave me a different perspective on business and got me very interested in wanting to do something more entrepreneurial, which I did. But before that, I went to Fireman's Fund, which was in the Bay Area, San Francisco, as the chief administrative officer. I had a portfolio of things in my responsibility there. A few of them were some big technology projects. So that was really the first time that I spent a lot of time working with technologists. From there, I actually I was owner founder of a direct to small business owner insurance platform that was named AssureStart. That was really a lot of fun, writing the business plan, doing the research, hiring everybody, building a company out of whole cloth. And ultimately selling it was a great experience, one that I still look at very fondly, and really was very foundational for me in my current role. I had not worked with AWS, Amazon Web Services, before 2012 when we started building AssureStart. And when we came to State Auto, which was another turnaround situation, we really needed to aggressively digitally transform the company. And the only way we were going to be able to do that was really rebuilding our talent base and really getting a whole new technology platform built. Again, it was almost a startup within an existing company out of whole cloth. We kind of started from scratch. And so that's a quick thumbnail on me. Outside of my daily work, I sit on 2 boards, one of which is TechCore. TechCore has a mission focused on exposing kids, particularly in underserved communities, K-12, to technology. So, whether that's, 4th graders that we've taught at elementary school, some basic block coding, or whether that be web development in the high school, it's really a great organization with a great mission. And it really fits well with the second board that I sit on is the Columbus State Community College Foundation Board. I joined that board to help the college get more throughput from the students that wanted to move into technology careers. And I was able to buttress that with the work that we were doing at State Auto and created an apprenticeship program. And that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of over the last 6 years. We've created a great corporate culture at State Auto and have a lot of energy. But the thing that we are doing now with Columbus State, whether it's a 30-year carpenter that's learning how to code or students out of distressed, underserved communities, we're taking first-year associate degree CS majors and hiring them into State Auto, where they're working and doing cloud-native development on a number of our new applications. while they're finishing up their CS degree. So most students at Columbus State, almost all of them are working in some fashion. So it's terrific to be able to give students an opportunity to work in a career that they're trying to build. And we hire probably 3/4 of the apprentices that come through our program. So it's really good for us. We get a good look at people and their energy and their work product. But more importantly, even the folks that we don't hire have been hired, almost all of them, by either Accenture or JP Morgan Chase in town. So the real question now is, how do we ramp this kind of a program? I would love to see 5,000 students a year coming through these programs. And I think it's a real important way to get people into technology jobs. We've proven that just over the summer programs that we can get people cloud certified with AWS just within a few weeks, and writing code and working on production applications. So that's a little bit about me. And I certainly encourage anybody who has any interest at all in moving into a technology field. It's not as hard as you may think, particularly with a lot of the newer coding technologies. I had some coding that I did back 30 years ago in college, and it was a lot harder then than a lot of the coding that is done today. So I encourage anyone to just give it a shot. It's a great career. Every company is driven by technology today, and everybody needs technologists on their staffs. A number of people in the apprenticeship programs that we've had that I always make the mistake and say, young people. One of our apprentices is a mom whose kids are just moved into middle school, and she wanted to start a career in technology. So she had no technical background. We had another gentleman who was 30 years a carpenter and said his knees couldn't take it anymore, and he started learning how to write code. So in those two examples, I think the challenge they had was somewhat not having experience sitting at a monitor and a keyboard for an extended period of time. So they had to overcome that. But the actual technical work was not a challenge for them to pick up. That's a really important point, that when I talk to anybody who's thinking about a career in technology, I really try to encourage them just to give it a shot and bet on yourself. I have not seen anybody who has failed. I think that's an important statement. So there's not, whatever challenges that are perceived, the perceptions are not in line with the reality. The folks that have bet on themselves and put the time in to try to learn these things, I've not run into a person yet who hasn't been able to learn it. For me personally, the trait that I always tie back to really are two things. I have a natural inquisitiveness that I've had my whole life. People call it intellectual curiosity, I guess. And whatever it is, I just want to understand how things work. And, even as a little kid with, erector sets or Legos, I always was very tactile in trying to take things apart and put them back together. My father was a civil engineer, and, I learned how to work on engines when I was very young. So I think that trait has stuck with me throughout. I'm always trying to figure out a better way to do things, which is kind of an adjunct to that curiosity question. Which, if you look at what we did at State Auto, we were the first company in the world to go live with full stack insurance company and Amazon. And it wasn't because we were trying to be the first. It was just because I questioned, why do we have to buy rack stack servers and put them in a data center? And it's been a decision that worked out really well for us. But, a lot of these things are just, coming from that root of, why do we do it like this today? And is there a better way to think about it? The pace that we have run, most people, when they look at us, they say, well, no one goes that fast. How do you do it? And we did it in a lot of non-traditional ways, by flattening the leadership of the organization so that there was a lot more smooth decision making. Really got rid of all project management, which is anathema to a lot of people. But we were able to get the people doing the work and give them ownership and empowerment. And those are the things that allowed us to move very quickly. But it was all in that root of thinking, how do we do this better? And why do we do things the way we do them today? So that's one thing. And then the other thing, just for me, I've never felt that I was the smartest person in the room, and I generally was not. So I always looked at the world that, I'm going to have to work harder than everybody else, and being willing to do in whatever it took to get through the eye of the needle and get something accomplished. In doing the startup, I was working 20-hour days. Like that's a story that most entrepreneurs would have. But you got to be willing to do that to accomplish things that have never been done before. So those are I'd say the two things: intellectual curiosity and hard work ethic. I really see less on the hardware and networking side as that stuff continues to get more automated and cloud enabled. So to give you an example, at Columbus State, Amazon has a good program where they have hardware certification. The college is very proud of that. And I keep trying to say, that's great, but we have a Google, a Facebook, and an Amazon data centers all in Columbus. And I think between them, they probably don't have 2,000 employees, probably not even 1,000. So a lot of that stuff is automated. So the answer to your question is I really see it on the software side. I think, the work that, we hired 60 full stack engineers last year. And that's where I see things, at least for the next few years. I don't like the iPhone's 12 years old. So projecting too much into the future and technology is always a little bit of a dicey game. But I think for the next 3 to 5 years, I think cloud development and software development in the cloud is going to be where most of the job opportunities are. One thing that I did in my first few months at State Auto was rejigger the whole leadership team. Like a lot of companies that I've come into and needed to turn around, there's sometimes and not an insignificant number of people move into leadership because the career paths are stacked. You move up the individual contributor career path, and the next promotion to get more money, and everybody wants more salary, is into leadership. And I have found more than a few cases where someone did that but really doesn't want to be a leader. So I focus on, and I've spent a lot of my time working directly with the leaders. I would rather have a smaller number of high quality leaders that are passionate about the success of the people that they're charged with leading than a big number of people who are not passionate about it. And so that's and I've done 3 turnarounds now. And that's the first thing that I work on, is getting the right leadership team in place. And so for me, to answer your question, what is a good leader? It starts with that servant leader mentality that you see Simon Sinek and others talking about. Or do you get out of bed thinking about you in the morning, or do you get out of bed thinking about your team? And if it's the latter, then we can have a conversation around how to get into leadership. I've had this conversation with a lot of people on my team. So one of the things I also did was take that individual contributor career path and extend it so that it's overlaps with management. So you can continue to, progress in the technical track if that's really where your passion lay. The question's an interesting one, but I'll reframe it a little bit to just ask the most important question for me is, do you want to be a leader, and do you understand what that means? Or is it just a psychological thing that you feel like you should get the next promotion? And you really got to peel that onion, because like I said earlier, if you don't really have a passion for other people's success, then to me, you don't have the starting ingredients for becoming a great leader. Beyond that, if the answer to the question is yes, you really do have that servant leader mentality and want to see the success of others, there's lots of reading that I recommend people to entertain. We do a lot of training at work on leadership. There's an organization in Columbus, Focus 3, led by Tim Kite, who works with some of the professional teams in the country and OSU, and teaches a lot of good leadership and just personal responsibility techniques. And one of the things they talk about is your 20 square feet. You can get all amped up about everything that's going on in the rest of the world, but when it comes time to coming in and doing your job, that's where you need to focus. And you have a lot of bandwidth within that 20 square feet to own your attitude and get your responsibilities taken care of. But there's a lot of reading. It's where we spend a lot of time as a leadership team, making sure that we have the right leaders in the right seats. And then we actually rotate people around so they get more perspectives in other parts of the technology department. We also have a women's resource group that we created, Women in Technology as a leadership development. So we get more women leaders into the pipeline. And then there's another organization in Columbus that sponsors about a year-long multi-phase development track that's called IT Leaders. And we put a lot of our aspiring leaders through that program. And it's a lot of the basic stuff that you would see in other leadership programs, but it really helps them get connections around the city. And it's us as a leadership team showing that we're investing in our people.